Hey everyone, it's Nikki with Thrive Bodywork in Alexandria, Virginia. I hope this finds you safe and well. I want to talk today about a very misunderstood part of our body, especially when it comes to engagement during movement. And that is the belly, the core, the abdominals. Call it the smush spot. I don't give a shit what you call it. It is a very misunderstood piece of our anatomy, especially when it comes to movement and movement cueing. So I want to go right to movement because I think this will make the most sense inside your body. Just getting right to it. So please do this with me because a lot of this stuff is difficult to see, but really easy to feel if you kind of do this with me. So let's go ahead and get down on the ground into, crunch or sit up position. Okay. So, knees up, feet flat on the ground, all of this. Okay. Now, the first thing that you'll generally notice or be cued to notice is the idea that your spine is just a little bit off the ground, that you can feel some space here. And so we'll be cued to put our spine on the ground. Or we'll be cued to push our belly button into our spine in order to put our spine on the ground. Now, what that is attempting to do is both get the spine on the ground, but also get the abdominals to engage. Now, the problem with both of those cues is it's concentrating the energy and therefore where the movement potential is coming from into the wrong spaces. If we push our spine into the ground, you can see look at how my chin and face are already engaged because I'm putting all of my energy into my back and not my front abdominals which is what we want to start moving. If we think about just pushing our belly button to our spine, you can see the same thing happens. My face, my jaw, my neck already are overly engaged. And what it does is really just concentrate the energy into this very small piece of our belly. Now, our abdominals are one of the biggest muscle groups in our body. They cover this whole area. Now there's, you can also consider sort of what's called the quadratus lumborum on the back. Some people consider that part of the abdominal musculature. It doesn't super matter. It's this many big, right? It goes from it's the entire space between our rib cage and our hip bowl. It's not just this one little concentrated area. And so if you're only concentrating everything here, you're never working, or engaging the entire piece of it. So A, it doesn't work very well. And B, it just doesn't work very well. Let's just keep it at that, and you'll feel what I mean when we're doing this. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. We're down on the ground. So what this cue is also, a better way of getting where we want to go, which is our spine on the ground and our belly musculature simply participating, is just neutralize the pelvis. That's what this cue is actually trying to do and doesn't know it. The whole spine or spine on the ground or belly button to spine cue. It's trying to neutralize our pelvis, but it doesn't know it. So just neutralize your frickin' pelvis. Now, how we do that is simply ooze the ground away through our feet. Just gentle push of the ground, gentle ooze of the ground, and you can see how my pelvis just tilts down, which puts my sacrum and my entire back, not just my spine, my entire back on the ground without effort. It just goes there because that's where it goes. Now, if you want to take this to the next level, while you are gently pushing the ground away through your feet, if you pretend like there's a water balloon here between your knees and also gently smush that water balloon, but it's a really delicate one. It's one that will break really easily. So you don't want to shove it. You just want to gently smush it. There's a weird connection between the inner thighs and the deeper musculature of the abdominals that you'll feel as that inner thigh just starts to participate. A deeper part of your belly, specifically this little poochy extra cookie bit that we can never seem to get rid of or get engaged or to participate, will just simply participate because that's what it does. Okay, so all right, so I'm sitting here, I start off, I'm gonna gently ooze the ground away through my feet. I'm going to gently smush my water balloon between my thighs here. I can already feel this lower part of my abdominals simply start to engage themselves without me even having to try. Now, in order to get this top bit, the above the belly button part of my abdominal musculature to engage, I want to think about my back ribs just sort of driving into the table or into the ground. And you can see now how, or you can feel how now this upper part of the core musculature is participating. Now, a interesting sort of anatomical fact: whatever our lumbar spine does, our cervical spine wants to do. I also consider our throat and the front of our neck as, I call it, the mini abdominals, okay? So whatever our real abdominals want to do, our mini abdominals want to do. Whatever our lumbar spine does, our cervical spine wants to do. So as we neutralize our pelvis, thus flattening and driving the lumbar spine into the ground, our cervical spine wants to follow. Nothing makes me crazier than the cue to keep an orange between your neck, under your chin. That it just, I don't even get me started, okay? And you'll be able to feel what I'm talking about. All that does is it just puts everything in the wrong place. It smushes here, and it makes me use my chin to lift my face, and it makes me use my chin to lift my rib cage out of gravity or into gravity. That is just not its job. So as we neutralize the pelvis and the low back goes into the ground, we want our cervical spine wants to elongate by tilting our head. Okay, now, oh my God, I promise we'll get there. Movement is meant to be incremental, meaning like a link of chain, one piece is responsible for moving the piece before it, and then one piece is responsible for moving the next piece. So it's like if we think of a link of chain, link number 2 lights up and moves link number 1. Link number 3 lights up and moves link number 2. 4 moves 3, blah, blah, blah. And it's this like nice, elegant chain of each piece is moving the piece before it. Now, we get dysfunctional, and literally everything about structural integration is the fact that we'll get these bundles, and the chain will get locked up, and big pieces of chain won't be able to participate. And so we get poor link number 10 is responsible for moving 1 through 9, and it's not its job, and blah, blah, blah. But right now I want you to think about each vertebra is responsible for moving the vertebra before it, or each rib is responsible for moving the rib before it. Because the other forgotten part of core engagement is the ability for the ribs to individuate and curl as well. Okay, so that's a lot of blabber. Let's just get to moving. So let's start with the Pilates roll-up. So I want to neutralize my pelvis by gently pushing the ground away and squeezing that water balloon between our knees. You can feel my head and neck want to lengthen. The back of my neck wants to lengthen. My head wants to go like this because that's what happened to the lumbar spine. So now I'm going to think about lifting my head as the first thing that gets lifted. And now I'm going to think about each of my neck vertebra lifting the next one. Now I'm getting into my ribs. So I think about rib 2 lifts, squishes to rib 1, rib 3 squishes rib 2, 4, blah, blah, blah. I keep going. Now I'm out of ribs, okay? And I'm coming to this part here. This is the part we all struggle with. And it's not because you're weak. It's because the diaphragm is a big, dense muscle to activate and squish through. And so what happens is we'll try to we'll do like this, right? We'll go like this. We'll come back down to use momentum. The other reason this is a tricky spot, it's because my rib cage now needs to leave the ground and start interacting with gravity. And so so my whole big heavy rib cage is also sort of coming off the ground and starting to float in the ether. So it is actually harder, stronger, and more productive and generative instead of degenerative to actually go ahead and use your arms. You'll also feel your arms start to strengthen in your biceps and triceps, exactly where you want them to be strengthening. If you actually let your arms sort of help you, and look at it, squeezing through that diaphragm, I'm engaging my biceps here, and I'm gonna come up and I'm gonna think about, lumbar 1, moving lumbar 2, lumbar, spine, 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 roll the sacrum, raise sacrum, 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 tailbone is the last thing to come up. Now I'm gonna reverse this. So I'm gonna think about my tailbone tipping, right? And then sacrum rolling down, vertebra, vertebra, vertebra. Now rib 1, rib, 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 rib. And now my neck is the last thing. And there was a Pilates roll up. Now if I'm gonna do that again, I've squeezed the diaphragm, I've gotten that pathway, that generative pathway participating and engaged. So now, usually they get to be easier with each one, to the point where now I can start to do them. I actually never, with roll-ups, put my hands behind my head. The best I'll do is this as I get more and more warmed up. But if this is too hard, this is better. It's not weaker, it's not cheating, it's stronger and more generative, and it's helping turn on the proper pathways and not skip dense tissue that needs to be engaged, okay? So that's a Pilates roll up. Hopefully you can feel how participatory and engaged your core is. If you want to do, just a crunch, it's the same thing. You want to ooze the ground away through your feet, squeeze that water balloon, to engage this lower part. And now think about, the bottom ribs driving into the table to engage the top part. And now you want to think about what's moving. Well, my ribs are coming to my hips and my hips are coming to my ribs. And so think about that happening. So my ribs, my hip points come up and my rib points come down, and then they separate. So I think of it as like an accordion. So this is opening and closing, opening and closing. That is a proper crunch, okay? Because that's actually engaging my abdominal musculature. And because my pelvis and rib cage are neutralized, my spine and my whole back is nice and on the ground, and the only thing that's getting activated is that belly musculature that we have so much trouble working and engaging. It's the same thing if you're, whatever position you're in, if you want to engage the core, it's not sucking in, it's not, driving the belly button to the spine, it's not, that just doesn't do it. Simply neutralize your pelvis, and your abdominal musculature will go home and be able to participate and engage itself. And so again, if I'm here on all fours, and I'm letting my pelvis anteriorly rotate, which is what most people's do, and I'm letting my rib cage, kind of dump here, you can see, my belly is just hanging down. And it's hanging off my spine, so my spine is going to get really tired and bad. So in order to now get my abdominals to engage, I'm not going to think about my belly button going to my spine. You can feel that's just terrible. What I'm going to think about is my ribs and hips neutralizing. So I'm going to think about that hip bowl neutralizing, and then I'm going to think about those lower ribs coming in and back. And there, now my abdominals are simply engaged, not to mention my arms and legs are getting stronger, and I'm able to float in and use my limbs instead of dumping into my joints. So you may be able to feel that as well if you are pretty body aware. And so now if I want to, do something like this, I don't have to worry about engaging my abs because they are simply engaged and participating because they're home where they belong. Therefore, they're able to do their job. So hopefully that makes some sense. One of my favorite things to do in the 5th hour, in the 5th session, which is where we organize the abdominal musculature and the belly, is I'll have people start to do a crunch. the way that they normally would. And then I'll ask them, if I had to do 100, what would be the first thing that would get tired? And it's always either the neck and the jaw, or, the hip flexors is usually the answer. And so then I'll do this cue where I have them, just neutralize their pelvis, and all of a sudden everything starts working better. But the fun thing through the 5th hour is after I've done, a few minutes of work, I'll have them do another crunch, and it just keeps getting easier and easier and easier as the belly gets more and more and more organized. So that's always a lot of fun. So if you're in, the Northern Virginia sort of DMV area, I'd love to get you on my table so you can experience an organized core for yourself. If not, hopefully this movement cue made some sense. If not, send me an email or a text. Everything's available on my website, www.thrivealexandria.com. Shoot me some comments. Hopefully this makes sense. Go forward in strong core, and be safe, wear a mask, socially distance. We're almost through this. Let's not ruin it. Take care, everyone. Bye.